This is the Four Principles, Season 1, Chapter 3. In this episode, we will be applying the outward-facing four principles to the Large Hadron Collider, and then working backward to draw conclusions about digital structures and consciousness. To start out, in Episode 1, we talked about how outwardly, each scale of the spatial world is nested in the one above, such that the subatomic is nested in the atomic in the chemical, and the chemical in the biological. The idea was that at each scale the four principles animate the processes governing that scale, but these principles reveal themselves like a fractal from scale to scale. Further, the four fundamental forces of physics each entail the four principles as well. The forces entail a natural order of reality according to the four principles. For example, commonly charged ions will experience a repulsive force whereas opposing ions will attract. Polarity manifests a direction to the spatial world. However, this natural flow to the spatial world at each scale can be resisted or reversed using technology. The Large Hadron Collider uses electric fields to accelerate hydrogen atoms, free of their electrons, into collisions with each other. That is, using the principle of polarity intrinsic to electromagnetic fields, the polar, commonly charged positive hydrogen atoms are accelerated into a collision against the repulsive force of electromagnetism. These collisions reveal subatomic particles through the various detectors located at the collision points. In other words, in overcoming the natural repulsiveness of their polarity, we have the revealing of interactions of a lower scale. From this we can draw some conclusions about digital structures and the nature of nonlinear intersections within consciousness. Polarity in digital structures is represented by preferential expectation matching, that is, two adjacent structure members with dialectical impulses in affirmation and negation by the same central structure member. Or it is represented by an analog structure with dialectical substitutionary impulses, such as in dual valence, where both forms of polarity coincide. That is, we can conclude that hierarchical priority results from polarity in these forms, which arises out of a natural inclination of digital structures to form polar arrangements. But the alternative, emotional coupling, describing adjacent structure members with common impulses affirmed and negated, creates synchronicity and resonance. Since we know that nonlinear intersections induce phase flips naturally pursuant to tautological flow, or hierarchical priority, to create structures, which are emotionally coupled. And we know that emotional coupling produces mirroring in social exchanges. And we know that mirroring reflects cooperation and common tension release. We can say that resonance is enhanced by common or synchronous phase flips to maintain emotionally coupled arrangements. Likewise, we must distinguish between postural releases which are shared, such as in mirroring or emotionally coupled individuals, and those which are singular, which reflect nonlinear intersections, inducing phase flips by consequence of hierarchical compulsion or tautological affirmation. Thus, emotionally coupled individuals are always resisting polarity. Just as the hydrogen atoms accelerated by electromagnetic fields in the Large Hadron Collider must overcome the repulsive force of the hydrogen atoms, so too must emotionally coupled individuals overcome the polarity represented by the attraction between polar arrangements. The manner by which this attraction is resisted and ultimately overcome is by resonance, or synchronous phase flips of accelerating consanguinity. That is, when synchronicity produces resonance through common phase flips, at some critical frequency polarity is overcome. Just as overcoming polarity in the Large Hadron Collider reveals interactions of a lower scale, so too do higher resonance frequencies reveal nonlinear interactions which preserve the emotional coupling. That is, at some critical frequency of resonance, we see more time preserved in nonlinear intersections, greater spatial displacement, more involved dialogues, mirroring and emotional coupling between postural releases. That is, under conditions of polarity, where preferential expectation matching is flipped into emotional coupling by a nonlinear intersection, we may see a few seconds or minutes represented by that intersection, of which the subject has no memory. But in higher frequency resonance, we can see much longer periods corresponding to intensive, even intimate experiences between the subject and the initiator of the nonlinear interaction. For example, you might exhibit a postural release and lose a few seconds in deep thought while working from home. Whilst at the same moment, a co-worker has arrived at your door and invites you to lunch. You spend the afternoon with the co-worker and become deeply familiar with them over the course of the remaining hours of the day. But you don't remember any of it. To you, you came out of your deep thoughts and returned to work completely unaware of the experiences. The emotional coupling of this exchange enhances the mirroring of affirmation and negation and synchronicity with your co-worker, which animates your work that afternoon. This also tells us something about nonlinearity. There are two poles of nonlinearity. The first is the bottom pole dominated by polarity, hierarchical compulsion, and dual valence. These nonlinear intersections compel phase flips which permit emotional coupling to occur. But then there is the top pole dominated by resonance at high frequencies of emotional coupling. These nonlinear interactions create synchronicity because they join like impulses to like. That is, every impulse is ultimately animated by these nonlinear intersections toward expression due to the immense amount of lost and intimate time associated with these interactions. That's the end of the podcast for today.